through this, and I think this will be, I think we'll be able to cover and touch a lot of things that Vicky, you nicely foreshadowed. Um, so let me see if I can share my screen. Can I share my screen, Scott? Or is it Di who put this together?
It's now up to Di to grant that power to you.
Okay,
Please grant me.
hold on.
Di, can you grant chatting power to us too?
Oh, Gord, yes, probably.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
Hold on, let me share. Let's see.
I think that chatting may be a meeting property that can't
Okay.
be changed once the meeting is started.
Okay, am I sharing or are you sharing?
You are sharing your screen. Wait, and that's fine. We can just stick with that if you want.
Okay,
That's perfectly fine.
does everyone see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Why don't we just stick with that? Okay, so this is what we want to talk about today, and it's only an hour meeting that I budgeted because it didn't seem like we needed any more time. So we wanted to welcome our new officers, who's Di as secretary and Rita as treasurer, and then just hint, there's still an opening on the board. And I want to thank very much to Olivia and Scott for serving in those roles since the summer of 2021. So I just wanted to
And
mention
thank you
that.
to Sung for staying on.
You're very welcome. So I don't know if there's anything else to say about that, or Scott, are you going to still attend? Or I mean, we don't have to really talk in a great deal of detail here, but I just wanted to acknowledge that you're here and thank you for everything that you've done.
Representing Willard.
Okay, awesome. Fantastic. Okay, so yes, so there is still an opening on the board, and that is the president opening, but I can serve here for maybe a few more months, and we probably should talk about this in greater detail. So Diane, Reed, and I met last week, and we sort of touched upon that, and we also planned this agenda, which we'll be talking about here. Okay, so what do we want to get to? The next thing here is to the mission statement, and that's item 3. And this is kind of funny because Di, we're kind of watching you try to figure this stuff out.
Sorry, I'm trying to look for the
setting.
chat function. Sorry, folks.
Okay.
Scott, if you want to log in and try to just find it, I'll look for it.
Okay.
And so anyways, while that's happening, if you can try to, yeah, thank you. I'm gonna try to direct your attention to the mission statement here. So one of the things we want to do was sort of refreshing the idea of what the goals of the PTA are. And so we looked at the California PTA website, and they have some really nice goals, and there's a link to it, I think in our original email, which we can resend out to everyone. And it's sort of very what you would think that the California PTA is interested in. The PTA Council is a little bit different because, as we were talking about earlier, we think that this is a gathering of all the different PTAs. And so what we think that could be really helpful that we could do as a council in terms of the infrastructure that we are is to help these things right here, these 4 bullet points, help PTAs build institutional knowledge, facilitate interaction between school PTAs, disseminate information as we get it, and then encourage and facilitate outreach to other community groups. And so kind of sort of piggyback on what Vicky was saying, we think of the PTA Council as a way to talk about things that are of interest to more than just one school, maybe the entire district. People who are interested in sort of policy types of issues, I think would be interested in this, things that, reach across all the schools, in comparison or in contrast to, fundraising for your PTA or Teacher Appreciation Week, putting on events at your own school. This is a little bit different, and I think it might appeal to a different type of person or, different set of interests. And so we wanted to start really making this available to everyone. You don't have to be in the PTA, your PTA bureaucracy to be able to be part of this, but you can just be, any parent in the district who's interested in looking at things in this sort of systemic way across different schools. I know, Rita, if you want to, Rita or Di, you wanted to add anything to that as we were talking about this.
Yeah, no, I think that really covers like the idea of bringing more people in to help see a lot of I feel like a lot of projects get talked about and don't get seen past to completion. And I think a lot of that is baked into the way PTAs are set up, where everyone has 2-year positions, and maybe you are able to move things a bit, but then someone else needs to pick up whatever the project is, and that doesn't always happen. And so I feel like, to my mind, what we're hoping to do is using work groups to be able to see some projects to be completed, even if they take longer than 2 years.
Yeah, great. So that's a really great segue to our next thing. Di, do you mind clicking on that link, working groups?
Sure.
Please? Yeah, thank you. So perhaps you've seen this, but this is a sign up list or sign up form that we put together. If you could scroll down just to where all the different working groups are. Right. Yeah, that's right there. Great, terrific. So again, we were just brainstorming, the three of us, on different types of groups that might exist for, for a certain set of issues, or for, a type of issue that people wanted to get to move on. And so we put this in sort of alphabetical order, and academics is a grouping like thinking about literacy, math, the math refresh or rebuild of the curriculum, curriculum rebuild is going to be happening sometime. I'm not exactly sure when. I thought it was going to be relatively soon. The last time I talked to Laura, it seemed like it was being pushed out, but it's something that will be coming. After school programming, that's a very big thing, right? We have an existing group that meets already with them, and they are going to transform that, I believe, into sort of like a parent advisory committee for the after school program. And so I think that's something that we definitely could and should be involved in. And they liked to work with us. They have found the collaboration that we've had for this last year, the after school folks with a subset of the PTA Council, they have found that to be really helpful. So we'd like to continue that working relationship. Equity and belonging is another thing we've thought. A lot of people who are an equity chair, but maybe they don't know exactly what they need to be doing. So wouldn't it be great if they could all get together? There are some schools that have done a great deal of work. Emerson, I always think of in this direction, and others, probably Longfellow as well. That would be a really great way for people to, again, build that critical mass to be able to help them develop what they need to do. I know Rosa Parks has been doing a lot of work here. Again, this is a perfect example of crossing bridges across the different school sites. Facilities improvement for people who've been here around, that Cielo was really the sole person who was holding the torch and going to all the meetings and trying really hard to get some activity on that. That is something that would be really helpful. It'd be helpful to know if the priorities that the facilities folks have for your school are the right priorities, to kind of pressure test what it is that they're trying to do or saying that they want to do for your school. So if we had a committee that could help support that, I think that would be really helpful. They do have a construction oversight committee, but I'm not exactly sure that it has the reach and representation that a PTA council sponsored group would have. Fundraising, how do people? Yes, sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, I think that facilities improvement also covers two other projects that are topical. One is the turf versus
at
Longfellow.
Yeah.
Turf versus grass, and then also the safety concerns of getting cameras and locks on
right.
So that would be those kind of fall under that category as well.
Yes, exactly. So that would be a really good overlap to one of the later groups down that list. But absolutely, yes, that's a really great connection right there. So fundraising. There was a question today on the list about fundraising earlier, about what sort of systems what platforms people use. Should there be some coordinated fundraising so that it's not everyone passing the hat around to local businesses, for instance? If you're doing something like an auction, and you're asking for donations from a local business, should we coordinate, or maybe we shouldn't? I don't know. So maybe that's a good way to compare notes on that. Lunchtime improvement. This has to do with not enough time for lunchtime. We put an end for that nascent. There is already activity around this. And so again, if more people are interested in learning more about that and trying to improve that, I know that's always been an issue for us, our family personally. Our kids come back with their lunches kind of full because they don't have time because there's not enough time. Parent education parent education event programming for your PTA. Wouldn't it be great if people got together and said, hey, I need this vendor, or we had this person come in, they gave a talk, it was so good, you should check them out, they really want to come and give a talk. So if we could pass compare notes on that, I think that would be super helpful to across different schools. And then school safety, as was alluded earlier, there is a group that has been working on active shooter safety, and that has gotten to the board and I think to senior leaders within the district, and I think they're working on that. But so I think there's going to be continued interest in trying to get some basic pieces in place to harden some of our sites. But then also there is traffic safety. That's sort of a perennial issue for certain schools, or pedestrian bike safety. Again, if we can have that critical mass of people getting together, maybe getting together with the city to figure out solutions as well. But again, parents and getting together across different schools is more powerful that way. Treasurers group, that's ongoing. That's something that Olivia very ably put together. And I know that Rita will also continue with that. So that meets every 3 weeks or so. And it resulted in some really interesting work that we have yet to completely present to the board and to the press and to the rest of the community. But I'm hoping that we can do that really soon. And that has to do with the budgeting comparison, comparing fundraising and expenditures. So that's some of the ideas that we had. This was sort of based on what we'd heard and thought about, and that was coming out at various meetings for the past 2 years. But we were hoping that people would be interested in finding these as broad buckets in which to start collaborating and come up with something. And if it's not, and I really am a believer of grassroots and sort of self-organizing. If no one comes, that must mean that it's not that important, and so that's okay. I'm not going to say, oh, we need to have a fundraising group. We must have it, because I said so. But rather, just want to put that out there as a possibility. And then, of course, people can figure out whatever it is that they would like to do instead, if it's not on this list already. Okay, any questions or thoughts about that or this approach? This is a little bit different from how we did it before. It wasn't about goals, but more like goals/groups and just getting together. The other thing I wanted to make sure that was clear is that you don't have to be a member, a standing member of the PTA Council. You don't have to be always coming to these meetings or anything like that. But this is a way to have cross-school or district-wide groupings of parents who are interested in some particular issue, and we would like to offer providing the infrastructures, if you will, to get parents together, to start caregivers together, to work on these things together, to collaborate.
How much response have you gotten so far on the form?
I got 5 responses. So I don't know how many people have sent it out. And Vicky, that was a really nice preamble that you put into yours when you sent it out to Malcolm X. Actually, I have a former intern of mine actually who, I feel so old, who actually has a couple of kids at Malcolm X, and she says, "Oh my God, I can't believe," she texted me on LinkedIn, and she said, "I can't believe I got this email, and you're the president," she was making fun of me. So it was fine. So I was thankful for the reach that email obviously got. So thank you for that. But yeah, I don't know if other people have sent it out, but I haven't actually seen it in Washington where I am. So I don't think it's gone out yet.
I don't know about other schools, but our announcements process largely comes from room parents. Like, we tend to send things to room parents who then disseminate to their classrooms. And because we haven't had back to school night yet, we don't have room parents. And so there might have been less connection that way.
Okay. So maybe it was, yeah. So maybe so I can put a little note out, I guess, asking for people to use their room parents or use whatever. Yeah.
In 2 weeks, maybe. Well, 1 week, by the end of this week, it'll be room parents should be selected for elementary schools, and then
right,
by the end of next week.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I would wait till mid September. Our first meeting's not till September 13th. And I think everyone's just really overwhelmed at the beginning of the school year. So I plan on resending it to the E-Tree after that first meeting as just a reminder, hey, you learned about all the things you can do here at Malcolm X. Here's some district level things you can do too. So people have seen it, but I'll send it out again. So hopefully we'll get some more response, because I do feel like I think there's a lot of our teachers actually who are parents who don't like to do the local PTA stuff because it's too close to their job, but might want to be on a district working group or something like that as well. or who might have kids at a different school. So being on a district working group might work for them as well.
That's great.
Tassan, it's Rachel here. I was wondering, is there any way to get, getting the word out is so case by case, depending on who's on this call, depending on all these different circumstances at the school sites. Is there any way to get the district's help to get the word out? Superintendent number one seems to be sending more regular emails, if you will. I don't know if it's going to reach so many more eyes, so perhaps in there's this info sheet that we all got at some point says we need you. And it's a district sheet that has ELAC, CPTA, piano, PAC on there. Maybe we can add us on there.
Yeah, I saw that too. I got the
help
exact
get the word
same
out.
sheet, and it's translated in Spanish on the other side. Yeah, I'm sure you've all gotten it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like, oh, but on the one hand, they do say the PTAs, but I think it is a representation of the PTA as being hyper local and events driven and that sort of thing, which is really different from PTA council. Yeah, so that's an important distinction. Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to see how we could do that. I mean, we could always ask.
It's
Yeah.
Lisa Estupin who puts that out. PT
Oh, does she
does.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that would be good to ask.
We could
We made
also
a PAC poster and a PAC ask for this year separate from that. So she might be willing to do like a PTA ask too.
I was thinking maybe we could also get a little write up in like the A+ newsletter, maybe. I don't know who does that, but like a little, this is what they do, or this is what they've done kind of thing. And that might be another place because it's a district wide thing, not an individual school thing.
That is
Yeah.
Trish McDermott.
Who does A+? Okay. Maybe we can try to follow with her. Yeah, with either of them. And of course we've worked with Lisa quite a bit, so it should be easier to talk to her about it. Nimota, did you have a thought?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't know if you can hear me.
Mhm.
I was gonna say that you could also see if principals could send it out.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking that too. So I don't know personally how to get the principals exactly, except through presidents, I guess. So
You could
And-
also ask each individual
Don't they get
PTA if
your
they could
email?
pass.
yeah, I'm sorry.
But
Say that again, Nimota.
aren't they all? Oh, sorry.
The president should be getting the emails, yes. But whether or not they know what to do with it or feel moved to forward it on, I mean, that's back to Rich's point where it's very circumstantial, very situational, not really systemic.
I think the tricky thing too is that our principal is so the budget of space he has to send out stuff that isn't his stuff is so small that we tend to save it for the really important stuff we need personally in our local PTA versus having him send something like this out. Yeah, so I think that might be the challenge at other places as well. Like we get a paragraph and we don't get a lot of space, and he doesn't like to send a lot of things to everybody that's not completely relevant to everybody. Not that
I mean-
wasn't a good idea.
I mean, should we try something like a physical flyer, and that PTAs then put into somehow get into every backpack,
Again, you're going to ask PTA units to distribute those into classroom sizes at their
Yeah.
school and put them into their teacher mailboxes, which, is another uneven thing. And then if they don't do it, it's a waste of paper.
Yeah.
But it would be less of a waste of paper if posters were delivered,
Mhm.
and if that doesn't
think-
get hung up or not.
A
it's
poster
just
with
no
a
love.
QR code to a web
Yeah.
page that had information and links might be a really great idea. And it's like a one-step thing to hang that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's a
It also
possibility
may
too.
just be the idea of waiting. It might also just be waiting for middle of September when everybody does have room parents, and disseminating this out is easier. It'll be before our next meeting.
Okay. So maybe we can do that so I did start playing around with Google Sites. We have one that was set up for a while, and it's an attempt to replace the really rather outdated webpage that we have, and we could just use it as a portal to to point to different things. And so I can show that online, and if anyone wants to look at it. I'll talk to Tom about trying to do whatever we need to do to change the URL so that it points to it from now on. But I don't know. Well, I'm not too sure how short a path it is to get to that, but that might be also a resource. Then if we were to create some sort of physical collateral, then you would just have that, as you say, that QR code that you can then point to and then learn more. Okay. All right. So those are some ideas of other outreach thingies to do. But I do agree that the council is pretty distinct from the PTA, and I think we should start thinking about that more and use it to our advantage, because it is different from the hyperlocal event kind of stuff that happens at PTAs. So, and then Susie, I don't want to put you on the spot, but you just are joining in. You're from Berkeley High, so I just want to say hello. Everyone here tends to be more, almost everyone here tends to be more on the elementary and middle school side of things, although Vicky, you also are representing BHS as well. But I just want to say hello, and we just kind of got through most of it, but you can, we're actually in a free-for-all now, so we can actually, we have a little.
Well, thank you
we
for
can
inviting me. Thank you, Rachel,
Okay.
for letting me join. Yeah, I'm a new Berkeley High mom, so anything I can do to help support you guys and any input I can provide, any ways to support, I'm happy to do it.
Right. Okay, so I think that's really all that I wanted to cover. The rest of this time we can spend on an ad hoc, or we can all kind of go home early, so to speak. But I don't know if there's anything else that anything else that people want to bring up. Lindsay, do you want to go back to this sort of summit thing of all the different
Sure.
advisory committees?
So I'm on my last year of PAC, my second year as the co-chair, and we're in planning mode for this year, and we're trying to set up more intentional lines of communication and collaboration, much the same as PTA Council is describing. And part of that is making sure that all committees hear the same things, so that when there's a Supercats on, when there's a presentation happening that's important, like for the budget or for rebuilding a new 3-year LCAP plan or whatever it is, that the P&O, which oversees tax parcel measures, the DLAC, which is English learners overseeing the local control accountability plan, the PAC, the Parent Advisory Committee, overseeing the local control accountability plan with a supplemental focus. That means like priority populations. The CAC, the Community Advisory Committee on Special Ed via the North Region SELPA, the African American Student Advisory Committee, and the Gender and Sexual Harm Advisory Committee all hear the same things. And there's 4 meetings planned, November 16th, January 18th, March 7th, and May 16th, to make sure that everybody hears the same information at the same time and then can discuss and ask questions. So the PTA Council is not part of that at this moment, but I'd like to recommend that we advocate for inclusion, because I think that it is interesting, especially in light of all of the advocacy groups that hopefully will come up off the ground.
Yes, and also
Lindsay,
given the fact that we're a
Lindsay?
big part of the budget as well.
Lindsay,
Mhm.
could you put those dates in the, oh, well, never mind. Can
There's
you?
no
Could you
chat.
email them? Could you
Can you
email them
repeat?
out?
Yeah.
Already got the
can-
chat, sorry.
Yeah, and did they send a calendar invite? I'm on the African American, I'm on PAC, P&O. I haven't seen any of those
Yeah,
dates.
me neither.
It's
Yeah.
not public yet. It's like part
Okay.
of the planning process of the co-chairs. So the co-chairs might know, but the general committees haven't yet quite started meeting. So but I think that it's good for us to know early on what's going on, because right now we're not included, and I think that it would be nice for us.
Who's that
to
running? Is it
be.
Jill who's putting together?
It seemed to be like one of those things where, like, Pauline Follensby's like, I'm coming to every meeting saying the same thing, or the superintendent is like, I'm coming to the meeting and I'm saying the same thing to all these different groups. Like, could we make sure that everybody hears the exact same thing at the same time? And it replaces one of the monthly meetings of those committees. So it's not an extra meeting, it's like a preamble, everybody has their presentation, and then the committees have the option to go into their own breakout rooms and discuss and formulate questions.
And who's organizing? Is it Jill?
Right now, I mean, like, everybody has different boss people. P&O's like, Kathy, DLAC is now
No. I'm sorry. Who's
Chris.
organizing this whole shebang?
Nobody.
Nobody is.
Nobody.
No,
Oh,
no,
so
it's
I'm sorry.
this whole
So
like amorphous idea that has been decided with a group of people. Liza Stupin, Chris
okay.
Albeck, who is the director of curriculum and is overseeing DLAC, Kathy Fleming, the P&O person. Sean Mansinger advocated for the CAC to be on there. Like, everybody's kind of, it's all a hot mess, basically. This is recorded, sorry.
That's interesting. So it's like we don't have a chaperone, do we?
We don't have a
District person.
designee, a BUSD designee is what they call it. Because we got to use weird language all the time.
Right, a staff member that we kind of connect, that we sort of connect to. That's interesting. Yeah, you're
Although,
right, we
aren't
don't.
we supposed to have a school board person?
Yeah, we
assigned to
do.
us?
Supposedly, yeah. Like last year was
Yeah.
Jennifer, but that's a little bit different, right? We're talking about some sort of staff
Yeah, a
person.
staff designee.
Yeah.
Do you want this to go to the whole mailing list? I don't want to, because it's too
It's too raw.
I don't want to write an actual email.
It's
But
not
send
baked
it to
yet.
me, please.
Yeah, Vicky and Rachie and Tasong. Anybody else want to be on this email? Yeah, Rita.
Rita.
All right.
Yeah, we'll figure out what to do with it.
Thank you. Sorry.
That might be something we could advocate for this year. Have some sort of staff designee person that,
Yeah.
coordinates with us, our go-to person. I would also advocate, for the superintendent. I guess the idea of these meetings is so that they don't have to say the same spiel at every meeting over and over. But I don't want them to come to our meeting and give me a spiel. I want them to come here and answer our questions for 30 minutes. So I feel like it would be nice to still invite her, but have her talk about the things that we want her to talk about, not the information she wants to disseminate to us, and have questions with her at least like 4 times a year. So I don't know if we can facilitate that again.
Yeah, would you
It
like
might
so,
be
go
It
ahead.
might be handy if we're allowed to go to these joint meetings, that basically we have the information all together, and then we have a question and answer session where they're fielding these questions and they aren't booked to have a presentation, and they know that we've had access to the same information as all the other committees, so they don't feel like they have to talk at us for so long.
So Lindsay, are you suggesting that instead of having them come here, or in addition to?
Because
Okay.
these are all on like third Thursdays, so they don't actually overlap with our PTA council meetings. So I don't know if like the district committees, we promise like, only 12 meetings a year. So we can't really like say, hey, here's
Yeah.
these mandatory extra hoo-has.
So, as you know, over 2 years ago, when Brent was still the superintendent, we had him come every other month. And I personally felt like he was just sort of doing what he's very good at, which is, communicating and sort of managing the narrative in a certain way. And then I know this is being recorded, and then with Anikia, I had the impression that it was nice and warm and stuff. But I think I was given to understand by some of her staff that she is also trying to be protective of her time. And so it was kind of a way of saying like, well, don't expect her to come every other month, man. She's not gonna be doing that. But then she only came once, so maybe the pendulum went way too far to the other end. So maybe a couple of times in the fall and a couple of times in the spring.
Right. So like once a quarter is every 3 months. But I feel like she was very comes off as very unapproachable, and like I don't know her at all because she hasn't been to any of these meetings. And even though Brent might have had an air about him, I felt like I was at least being heard and listened to. And I knew for a fact that he knew what the issue was because he heard it, whether or not he was going to solve it. I don't know that she knows what some of the issues are if parents don't have access to her to communicate them. So I have no proof that she's ever heard anything, because at all of the meetings I've ever been to her, it's her disseminating and not listening. So it would be lovely to have a meeting with her where we say, here are some of our issues. What's the district doing, or we want to put them on your radar, that kind of thing. Sorry, Rita, you had your hand up.
I just put it up because I do want to say again, this is being recorded, and that I have been to several. She has done listening sessions. She did several when she started, and then once at the end of the school year. But it was more about the next bond measure. But I mean, I think there have been ways. It's just she's asking people to come to her to talk about a thing, whereas we're saying we'd like you to come to our already organized meetings to talk with us. And I mean, my thought would be that we've got value in both of those things, but there have been some listening that she's done. It's just
she has done some listening, but it's more like, I'm going to listen on this topic. And I want to hear about this topic, where maybe there's other topics that I'd like her to hear about. And where's the opportunity to tell her about those other topics? That's sort of what I meant. Sorry.
Yeah. And I agree with that, Vicky, because there's, for example, if she came to our meetings, and even if it's those 4 that we share with the other groups, which I think is a great idea, right? Because it gets us to see who the other leaders are, see the overlap. There you are again, there you are again. Okay, and being on the PNO and PAC and African American Success Committee, and sometimes this one, I can see that there's a lot of overlap with what we're wondering about, namely accountability, outcomes, data-driven, outcomes and measuring. I mean, those are like every committee is asking for those. And so I think it's really good. And I think, yes, having her come, and if we could, we had that running doc, I think, of questions or issues. If we can keep that and just coordinate that list of issues and questions with when we will see her at these 4 meetings, I think that would be great, because there are issues that we're going to deal with that PAC, none of them deal with, like things that really impact kids, like lunchtime. For decades, kids have saying they don't have time to eat. Berkeley High, Susie can speak to that. The bathrooms ranges from dangerous to unusable. So kids are holding themselves without using the bathroom. These are things that are impacting kids. And so I think it's really powerful for her to come to our forum and say, we have committees on these issues, and we're working on this, but we need your support. So I'm a huge advocate of her coming to us.
Okay.
Yeah.
Another one
great.
is like the teacher parking. That wasn't on your list to song, but the idea
Mm-hmm.
that teachers have to leave their classroom to put money in a meter because
Yeah,
there's no parking.
I had the impression that there were some solutions that certain schools had already pursued. I guess it's still an issue for other schools. Is that right?
They're working
Okay.
with the city. It's a big issue with the Milvia parking garage. I'm on that committee too, with the tennis courts and the parking garage. And the teachers have, for Berkeley High at least, they park across the street at Milvia Street in an outdoor lot that was formerly the tennis court. The tennis court people want the tennis courts back. And so they're trying to negotiate with the city to issue more permits, to the teachers. And so it's kind of like a issue
Yeah.
between BUSD and the city right now. So that is on their radar. Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
and I know that was something that we talked about maybe 2 or 3 years ago when we were meeting in person, was also this idea of teacher salaries, because if teachers lived in the community where they worked, and we had a subcommittee on affordable housing for teachers, and trying to work with the city on doing that, they could ride their bikes or use public transit, but they're commuting 45 minutes away, so they have to drive and find parking. And a lot of the neighborhoods, you have to have a permit for that neighborhood to park in them. So you can't park at a neighborhood school if you don't have a permit. So I think that just got dropped off. But this whole idea of affordable housing for teachers to be in our community, and the idea that we've lost a lot of teachers because they can't be closer to the community, is just another thing that we had talked and tried to advocate about, but fell off the radar.
I think it can be, we can add non-teaching staff as well. I mean, I know
Yes,
at BAM
yes.
we have it seems like every couple of years have a whole other discussion about how to get permits so that enough. I mean, at one point they were even asking other like families who lived in the area of the same letter parking to be able to request a permit. I mean, it starts getting really, I don't know, when again, these are the people that help our schools run.
After school teachers, IAs, yeah. All of those people, yeah. Our certificated staff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I hear you loud and clear. I will work with Inikia and her staff to get her here for a couple meetings this fall, a couple meetings in the spring, and then I will send out this is the questions that we want to ask list out again. I think I think I know where it is, and I'll send it out, and we'll proceed with that. Great, that's great input. Glad to hear that. Any other things that people wanted to bring up for this year as we plan?
I'd like to make a pitch to come to anybody's school with a trivia game about literacy and teaching kids how to read and what to do at home to support your student, and red flags to look out for in your classrooms. Kind of like a fun literacy game night. And so I'd like to pitch any schools maybe to do even a joint night so that we get lots of families. And this would be geared toward really K-3, when there's a hope to do something about it, because I don't want to be a downer.
Are you open to tabling at like a general meeting, like our welcome meeting by any chance? Or are you more looking to do like a focused literacy meeting?
I don't care if it's a focused literacy meeting. Like I have a bunch of like phonics games and stuff too. It could be like a literal like literacy game night, to make it a little bit more fun and a little less educational sounding, because sometimes the educational events don't get the people that you want there. So if we can make it sound fun with prizes and stuff like that, that's kind of how I'd like to roll. I'm happy to table at any event that you'd like with some handouts. And that will catch some of the people who are already aware that their kids might be struggling. but it's not gonna catch the people who are being told that their kid is fine, just wait till 3rd grade, they'll catch up.
We'll talk offline.
I know that after school programs are top, it's a hot topic. I think to some there was that email.
Yeah, have you been hearing, anybody been hearing stuff? I've been hearing a lot of anecdotal disasters, but how about you guys? Anything?
We
No?
have, it's interesting. I just learned we have a new hire that's an on-site supervisor for our Learns program, which isn't the person who's been our coordinator for like the last 15 years. So she now has a new boss who reports to I don't know who that works on site. And I've been told to coordinate with him for our after school PTA classes, where I've always coordinated with Kathy was our person before, but this is a supervisor that is an on-site supervisor for our Learns program. So I don't know if there's been this position created at other schools as well, but it's a new position and a new staff person at our school. And he was a very nice guy, but I was a little sad that Kathy didn't get promoted, that someone stepped in to be her boss. I felt like she was very capable. And so I'm going to be working with him to like coordinate classrooms and things like that to get space to do my PTA classes.
So what's Kathy doing then? She's gonna be doing
She's
the
still
same thing?
there, I guess, but I don't know. I don't know. I haven't
Or
talked
is
to
she
her.
gonna be one of the teachers?
I don't know what she's gonna do. It
Hmm.
looked like she was still running around coordinating, but he was too. So I'm confused. I need to get the scoop from her. But our principal told me to go talk to him, and I just had a chance to introduce myself, tell him who I was, and I'm planning on meeting with him hopefully this week so I can get assigned classrooms and I can schedule my after school classes. But I
Okay.
haven't had a chance to talk to Kathy either. So yeah, I don't know what that whole shakeup is, but it wasn't like he's replacing Kathy. He's between Kathy and whoever's above her. It's a new
I
position.
wonder what else he's doing. That doesn't sound like a full-time job.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So we've been hearing anecdotally that there's been a lot of difficulty in getting space, at least at Washington Elementary, for after school. I think they're down a lot of staff, and apparently this is district wide.
Thousand Oaks. Is there anyone from Thousand Oaks here? Apparently, I've been seeing on Berkeley parent side or Berkeley parents group on Facebook, a bunch of Thousand Oaks parents are like, "What to do with my kid? They're on a waiting list. They can't get into after school programs."
Schools. So I understand that schools are on waiting lists for the next Learns person
Teacher
that they can
or
hire.
hire.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that means you have to think in chunks of 13 or 16 or 20 or something like that. In terms of where your kids can be. The city's been highly impacted as well. And also private programs, they are running out of space. They don't have space on buses. So there's certain programs where the bus will take your kid there, and that there's an impact on. Laura Bell was saying that there's been a shortage of bus drivers. So that's an overall impact and definitely an impact on the after school programming as well, the private stuff. So I just reached out to Christy and asked her, are you going to be putting out a communication to like just tell people? Because a lot of times we didn't know, like for instance, we ourselves after 6 years didn't get in, and we found out just literally like 2 weeks before school started, which is not a lot of time.
Wow.
And a lot of other parents seem to be in the same boat. They just found out like in the end of July, late July for that. So anyhow, I was asking her, are you preparing, getting together a communication just to tell us how things went and where things are and what your plans are in the future? She said they're putting together a presentation for the board and not too sure if they were planning on doing something more public. So on this topic, so they have a this sort of working group or collaborative that Scott and Olivia and I would go to, meeting with Lisa, Christy, and Brazil. And so 6 of us would get together every maybe 6 weeks or so and try to talk through these various issues. So I think what we're trying to do is morph that into an actual formal a parent advisory committee. And Christy's very organized, and she's put together an agenda, and so I think a plan for all the meetings. So I think that's going to be a really helpful venue to be able to work with them. So just kind of putting that out there. So I guess an ask for you is if you can find out and if you can hear it, anecdotally how things are going in terms of after school care, how that's worked out. I'd like to hear that, or we would probably like to hear that.
Also on a school safety issue, somewhat related, I remember back in the day pre-COVID, kindergarten parents could come into the yard at 1:30 and then hang out until 2:20 when their older kid got out. And we've just gotten notification that parents have to be off the yard like by 1:45, and then the gates reopen at 2:20, and then they have to be off the yard by like 2:35. They only have 15 minutes and they can't hang out that time anymore. I'm assuming that that's like a safety thing. I just wonder if other schools have gotten that kind of communication, or if it's just something at our school, but that they're going to lock the gates between kindergarten and upper grade release. And so I've heard some kindergarten parents complaining about that. And
Yeah,
'cause
we're no
it's-
longer allowed to be on campus either at Cragmont.
Okay.
That was taken, they took the opportunity of COVID to kill that
Okay.
opportunity,
Yeah.
which
So
means that parents don't connect.